creative financing, it's another strategy in our tool belt. One, to be able to, honestly, to be able to give you more options to do things on the back end. But really, ultimately, to be able to provide really solid solutions to the seller as well. Any of the money that we come out, so really, we technically don't come out of pocket because it is coming out of their profits at the end of the day. And so technically, we're not even paying for that. It's just coming out later, but it is a non-refundable deposit. So we'll talk about that part a little bit later.
This is your host and real estate coach, Rafael Cortez. You are listening to the REI Wholesaling Podcast, where every week I bring you the real-life case studies and strategies you need to level up your real estate wholesaling business. If you haven't done so yet, go to reiwholesaling.com. Again, that's reiwholesaling.com. Sign up and get free access to your Wholesaling 101 course. This free training teaches you step by step everything you need to close your next wholesale deal and start making big money now. Fam, what's up? Welcome back to the REI Wholesaling Podcast. Let's talk all things wholesale. Today we have a very special guest. This is actually, it's interesting. I got a call yesterday from my good friend Steve Trang, and he goes, "Hey man, you got to have this guy on the podcast. He's doing big things. He has this thing going on. It's called the Installment Method, and like it's gonna break our space." I was like, I can't wait to hear more about it.
Yeah.
So let's get it.
That's high praise from Steve Trang. He usually doesn't say that nice of things about me. So
I'm telling you, he doesn't hug or say nice things on a regular basis. But yeah, he spoke highly of you. So
I paid him.
Shout out to my boy Steve. We have Devin Robinson on the podcast today. So you started wholesaling around 2021. I mean, you hit the ground running. Literally, you closed around 70 deals over the first 6 months, selling to hedge funds. So you had that whole strategy going on. Since then, I mean, you've deployed a fund. You're buying all over the Charlotte area. Mm-hmm. Basically, you have that whole section of the East Coast, right? That you're covering. And again, like I mentioned earlier, you guys rolled out this strategy. I mean, we talk about novations, we talk about options, creative financing, and whatnot. And the installment method is something a little different, right? It's I want to call it almost like a different acquisition strategy. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but we can, let's break it all down. Glad to have you on the show, dude.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you, first of all. Really thankful to be on here, honored to be on here. Man, and that's it. That's exactly what it is. So you mentioned it. You said it's like wholesaling, novations, creative financing. It's another strategy in our tool belt. One, to be able to, honestly, to be able to give you more options to do things on the back end. But really, ultimately, to be able to provide really solid solutions to the seller as well. Solutions that they're not getting from any of those other methods. But what it also does is it allows for a ton of protection for you, the investor. And one of the ways that I think about this is because, one, and I don't like jumping into the regulation stuff because it is what it is, and we've been hearing about regulation for years, but it protects you from any of the regulations that could happen because wholesaling has whatever rap it has, where it can be done really, really well, but in the South where we live, so like in South Carolina, you can't wholesale there. They send cease and desist if you try. So it protects you from that. It also protects you from like what we're used to, which is like sellers getting cold feet or backing out, where I've had sellers literally back out at the closing table, and where like before we did the installment method, our drop-off rate was 25%, where we'd get it under contract and it'd fall off because either the seller decided that they wanted to back out or wanted to go with another offer or something. This kind of eliminates that. And then it also protects us from honestly being like having to be tied into any specific exit strategy. Just gives us a ton of options in that. So it's been really cool.
Awesome, man. I want to break that down here in a sec too. And I already have a couple of questions about it. So we do a strategy that's somewhat similar depending on how much we're into the deal for, right? Yeah. So you want to hedge risk. It's really what you want to do. As you get more into the more advanced, deal structures when it comes to wholesaling or acquisitions, you want to make sure that you're covering your bases, right? Like you're covering your ass,
exactly. Like I do for real.
Especially if you're putting, 10, 15.
Yeah, you're putting money in on it.
Yeah, exactly. Into these deals, which, it's going to happen as you get, rolling and look at volume and look at different ways and different problems that we can come in and solve. Right. So before we get to all that stuff, Devin, break it down, man. Like you got started 3 years ago. Give me, you know, the 2-minute version of what's happened since and what you've seen throughout the last couple of years in real estate.
Yeah, fantastic.
How you got started? Yeah.
So I got started. It's funny because I got started about 3 years ago on TikTok. You know, you get one of those things where people are like, where it's like, hey, make money now in real estate with no cash or no credit. And so like I had started a couple other businesses and sold some businesses along the way, failed a lot of businesses as well. So I went to my wife and I was like, hey, babe, you should try this out. This could be really cool. And she was like, nah. And I was like, all right, I'll try it then. So then I started getting into wholesaling, and this is even just like a little bit of an inside thing. So I went to my mom. I joined a Discord, learned about wholesaling. Then I went to my mom and I was like, hey, I got this strategy or this thing called wholesaling I really want to do. I'm trying to learn it and get it started. And my mom looks at me and she goes, you know, that's what I do, right? And I was like, well, what do you mean by that?
Your mom was wholesaling?
Hold on. What? She wasn't quite wholesaling. And I was like, what do you mean? And she goes, I'm an acquisitionist for a hedge fund and we buy from wholesalers. So she was like one of Amherst's like main 5 acquisition people.
Stop.
So, and I had no idea. So really,
see, kids out there, talk to your parents. They might be rock stars.
That's exactly right. Until the hedge fund stops buying and then lays everybody off. So now my mom works for us and it's incredible. And I'm super thankful for that. But like,
wow.
So really our main model was like for sale by owner, negotiate with them. And then the hedge funds are buying at like 100, 110% ARV for sale by owner houses.
Yeah.
And so we were just shoveling deals to the hedge fund. And this isn't like, oh, I had an inside with my mom. Like we let them know all of that stuff. But then also anybody could have done this because they were buying from anybody that was doing this at the time. And then what ended up happening was everybody knows in the end in November of 2021 or whenever that was, the market just hedge funds stopped buying. And so then I had to really learn this craft and what wholesaling actually was, going directly to the seller. And as we talked about, wholesaling is a sales and marketing company. Real estate is the product. And so I had previously owned a sales and marketing company. And so then just really applying that to this, I spent the next 6 months head down building out SOPs and systems and processes. And I'm in a really good mastermind and that helped a ton for that process. And then in July of last year, really started picking up in foreclosures. So double down, triple down, quadruple down on just marketing to foreclosures, building out a really robust system and process for that. And so once we built that out, it started going really, really well. And so I'm thankful for that. We were able to help a lot of people going through foreclosure. And then also, those are some of the biggest deals you can get is if you're giving value through foreclosures, then people typically are just like, yeah, I just need help with this. And then we're able to make pretty good money doing that. And then I transitioned because foreclosures tend to be capital heavy from paying off arrears or paying for people or giving them their deals. Oh, you sound like you were going to...
Yeah. But I don't want to interrupt. I have a thought, but I'll.
Oh yeah, cool. So no, and then so because of all of that, I decided we're using a lot of private lenders. Private lenders, honestly, is just a very inconvenient process. Yeah. And so then I started a fund, and then we just raised a bunch of capital, and we deploy that in a lot of those foreclosures now.
I'm telling you, like there's a stigma, right, on the foreclosure stuff. People are in distress, and this is one thing that I don't like that gets to me, right? When somebody's in foreclosure, they either, I mean, they know whether or not they're going to be out of the issue, out of the problem in a matter of 30 days, 60 days, and whatnot, right? For example, Arizona, we have a 90-day reinstatement period. But a lot of times, people get to that, very last leg of the thing. They're not able to solve the problem, and in going after, that type of lead can be, capital heavy, right? Why? Because there's risk. Like for example, in our case, we put money out of pocket to catch up arrears, to make sure that they don't get evicted, that sort of thing. We create win-win scenarios, but a lot of times the risk is higher. So when the risk is higher, there has to be something that hedges you. Yep. And in the event that, I don't know, something comes up with the lien, you know, or seconds that we're not, I mean, we get seconds.
Oh man.
Or recorded liens that, you know, they don't come up in the original search.
Yeah.
And then we look deeper into it, and now we have, oh shit, like this thing has a $130,000 additional lien
or
on
a judgment.
Or a judgment, or, you know, something, you name it, right? But there's a lot of things that happen when you're dealing with you know, titles that are not necessarily cleared, right? So this is where I see like the value of a strategy like this, you know, come into play. Now, with that being said, can you walk us through the process? What would that look like? And then maybe give me an example of a deal where you use the installment method and you know.
100%. I can give you.
We like numbers here,
bro.
Like,
I can give you. And I told you, I'm an open book. I'll give you all of my numbers. I am totally fine with that. Because like really, it legitimately has been probably one of the best things that I've come across. Now, granted, 3 years in the game. I don't know, but like it's been the best thing that I've come across that has been a good solution for the seller, also a really good solution for us without getting us into a ton of that judgment risk that we run into. And so, but then also protecting us from, and you know as good as I do, people that are in foreclosure typically are habitual bad decision makers. Yeah. And so then what happens is like, doesn't matter. You could be the most helpful person in the world to them and they can love you. They're still going to be very self-preserving in that context. And so they're going to do whatever they think is best for them. And so it protects us because we're on the title with them. So here's how the process goes. So let's say I was pitching you, and in a normal deal, if I was going to do like a wholesale, let's say the house is worth 300, I'm going to want it under 200. If I'm going to wholesale that to somebody else at like 168 or something, 170 to be able to make a profit to wholesale it. But in this instance, because I go on the title, I can actually put that on the market where I'm going to be exposed to millions of buyers instead of a couple of like 15,000 cash buyers maybe. And so I will be able to offer 230, 240 instead of 170, 180. So since I can offer that person, let's say I'm talking to you and you're like, man, I really want 220 out of it. So I'd go, man, my offer is 170, Rafael, but maybe I can go back and ask my underwriters in the back. I'm not sure if you'd qualify, but we do have our installment program. And with that, I think I could be able to get you that 230. And honestly, I may be able to give you about $500 now on our closing. Would that be helpful for you? And if they're in foreclosure, they're like, you can give me money now that I can keep, non-refundable? Sure. And even if they go, that's not a whole lot. Can you do a little bit more? I can go, hey, look, all right, I can maybe do a little bit more. Maybe I could do the 500 now, and then maybe I can even do 500 a month until we close. So then you'd have monthly income until then. To be able to help take care of even the move or whatever you got going on in your life. Would that be helpful? So then go ahead.
And you make sure that, you know, whatever monies you're paying out, they go towards the purchase price, right?
That's exactly right, man. So any of the money that we come out, so really we technically don't come out of pocket because it is coming out of their profits at the end of the day. And so technically we're not even paying for that. It's just coming out later, but it is a non-refundable deposit. So we'll talk about that part a little bit later. Because wholesaling in general, when we get a wholesale contract, it's seen as equitable interest on a property. Yeah. But in some states, in most states in where I live on the East Coast, Oklahoma, parts of Tennessee, Georgia, definitely, it's not seen as actual interest or ownership on the property because it's just a piece of paper. Until you actually put the money down, that's when you get what's called the equitable interest on that property. And so what we're doing with the installment method is we're going and I'm saying, hey, I'll give you that $500 now. So then depending on how fast your title company works, ours does in 3 days, we can close if title's clear. Gosh, you know, with foreclosures, title's never that clear. But as quickly as title can close, we do an initial closing, and that's when we pay our $500. And depending on how good the deal is, I'll put $5,000, $10,000 now down if I know that that's a good deal and I want to lock it in. So I'll put that down. And when I put it down, they file that with the county. And then, so that equitable interest is filed with the county on like a bond for title or a contract for deed. And so when they do that, I now am on the title of that house according to the county. So anybody who searches that, any realtor, any lender that searches that, they're going to see our name on that title. And then the title company that we initially did the closing with actually holds a physical copy of that deed and doesn't actually file the deed until we close on the back end. So what's been cool here is what's happened is the seller signed away their interest to the property. So we actually never have to worry about them again. Like they never come back to any other signing. And this is what separates it from like novations. Novations, they still need to come back. You need a power of attorney. Like there's all this stuff that goes along with that. And even a power of attorney sometimes can be a little like, eh. And so we don't need any of that. They never come back. They never see what we make on the back end. They're done. The next time they talk to the title company is to get their check on the back end. So what I've done, Rafael, is I said, hey, I can get you that $250. I'll give you $500 now and $500 a month until we close. So you'll get that $500 on that initial closing. And then like, heck, I can Venmo you, I can Cash App, I could do whatever, the other $500 a month until we close. I just need to send the receipt over to the title company and they do all that stuff. So then what happens from there is I am legally on the deed of that property and can put it on the market. I can actually, and I've done this and we can talk numbers. This is where the numbers is fun. I've literally refinanced houses after being on the property for 24 hours and then now I own it. So then I don't even have to come to, this is crazy. I don't have to pay. The only thing I pay to own a property is 2 closing costs. Because we do the initial closing and then we do the back end closing with our new loan. And then now I own the house. And so because I just straight refinanced the seller, now that's like next level kind of stuff. I don't want to like get too far on this. And so we're talking numbers. Got a house in Charlotte for $130,000. It appraised for $230,000. We got on the deed. 24 hours later, you can do a rate and term refinance. So it's not a cash out.
Not a cash out.
Not a cash out because you need like a 3-month minimum seasoning for a cash out. Rate and term refinance on the purchase price. And like within 2 weeks, we closed the refinance. So I literally didn't come out of pocket at all to buy a house, which is kind of wild. I didn't have to come up with a loan to buy the house, then refinance it. Because I did the installment method, I came back and refied 2 weeks later.
And on the refi, you obviously pay the seller and then you pay whatever balances.
So
are left on the liens and all that stuff.
That's exactly right. The refinance paid all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I actually wholesaled it to myself on that deal. So I got it under proper.
So you cashed out.
I cashed out at the beginning. I got it under contract for like $130, and then I sold it to myself at $150 because the refinance was at $150.
You cashed out
$20K.
$20.
That's right. That's exactly right. I cashed out on it and still refinanced out on it. Yeah. So I actually made a ton of money on that deal without literally coming out of pocket once. So it was really cool. So like it allows you, because you're on the deed, you could do whatever you want and you're protected because like it's better than a memorandum or a notice of interest. Way stronger.
We do that. And that's awesome, right? Like it's, again, people, I feel like as wholesalers, when we start, at least when I got started, right, the thing was like, no, like you're not gonna use any of your own cash to buy the deal. Yeah. We're still spending money when it comes to marketing. There's a lot of expenses that go into the whole wholesaling operation, right? When you're running it right, or as a business. Let me rephrase. So with that being said. There's so many different ways and creative ways to structure deals now. I mean, now you start. For example, that's on the acquisition side, right? But say that you mix this in with a wholesale strategy or you name it. There's so many different ways that you can plug, and play with on the back end for the dispo side.
It's so good.
That you can seller finance, you can whatever.
Yep.
But you can really explode your bottom line dollar, right? Like your revenue. So it's pretty interesting. I like again, having the security of the deal goes a long way. We do that whenever we do it. It's because we've caught up arrears. We actually we put money into the property somehow, some way. We just closed one deal in northern Arizona. We had to catch it up, and that was like we were like right there up against the foreclosure on it. We had some issues with the tenant. So the tenant, quote unquote tenant, squatter, but he was the son, and he was squatting in the property. We had to evict the son, but we had to catch up the mortgage on that with $30K. Like, what do? You don't just say, hey, let me help you out with that, and then
that's exactly right.
Yeah, so you want to hedge your.
So
we recorded a deed.
That's a huge risk. Like, it's a good deal. It's a good deal, but you're not gonna pay their arrears off unless you're on that deed. Yeah. There's no way.
Yeah, exactly. So break it. When you guys do this, do you run a preliminary title report beforehand? Make sure that it's clear and you don't have any crazy stuff lingering on, or
typically
do you hedge it against?
Yeah, typically in Charlotte now we've got like really good title company. There's a company called 24 Hour Title, and they can clear it in.
Are they just in Charlotte, or are they national?
No, so they're actually in all of North Carolina and South Carolina, and that's about it. So and then one of their. Yeah, that's kind of where we have them for that. I wish they were national. They're legit. They're so good. And so if you're in North Carolina and South Carolina, 24-hour title is the way for us to go. And so, so then we run that preliminary title. It's quick. They'll get that back to us in the same day if we need them to get it back in the same day. And then and they do a pretty good job pulling everything, judgments, all of that stuff. And so that's been really helpful for us to have that.
Now I want to bring up something that you mentioned, I think, before we started recording. But it's like this is not something that you came up with or anybody came up with just overnight. You know, you had a dream and then like you woke up and you had this strategy. It's like, let's make it happen. No, it's actually backed by the Department of Real Estate of North Carolina, right? Talk to me about that.
So there are two things. So this the installment contracts actually started in like 1880s, which is kind of wild. And then it gained a little bit more traction back in the 70s. With like African Americans and redlining. So
isn't it crazy, bro? We feel like we're inventing all kinds of shit, but like it's been around forever.
Hey, look, like
creative finance.
Nothing is new under the sun, man. So it is funny, man. And so there is a. So then in like the 70s, it was brought back. It was brought back because of redlining, when African Americans and minorities weren't really allowed to buy property in certain areas. They couldn't qualify for mortgages. They couldn't do any of those things. And so they used these installment contracts, and it was actually fairly predatory on the buyer, because if they would lose a payment, they would get foreclosed on like right away. But these like African Americans and minorities, one of the only ways that they could purchase properties were in installments. And so they would do these installment contracts. And so this was popular up until like honestly the 80s, and then in the 90s, and then it dropped off. And then there's because of the heavy regulations that started happening in South Carolina, one of our partners, Gary Pickering, who is one of the South Carolina State Commissioner or South Carolina Real Estate Commissioners. He owns he's a brokered, or is it a brokered? He's a real estate broker, and he owns one of the largest title companies or closing companies in South Carolina. They've got like 50 attorneys. They do a ton of work. And so we got together, figure out how can we kind of alleviate this risk of wholesaling, because I think wholesaling is a great service for sellers in general. And so how do you continue to be able to do this in a state that's so heavily regulated on wholesaling? And he is a real estate commissioner that literally, and he's the one that is actually enforcing a lot of these wholesale deals and getting together with the commission and voting against it and stuff like that. And so how do we mitigate the risk of doing them, because they're still a necessity? And so what they did was they got together, started talking through this, and then found a way to contextualize and streamline the installment process in today's like real estate atmosphere. So it isn't just something I came up with. There's actually really smart attorneys that came up with this. The documentation not legalized it, but made sure that it was legal and good to do in all 50 states. So we got title companies in all 50 states. The contract is good in all 50 states, and there's a ton of ways to make sure that it's done really well. Not because of me, because of yeah.
No, and it's important to understand, right? Like there's a lot of things that are changing in our industry. There's the regulations kicking in. I mean, we see it on the marketing side all the time. We're allowed to do one thing, but an algorithm pops up and now it blocks your entire marketing strategy. Now we have a pivot.
Oh, yes.
So whenever we get to a lead or a prospect, it's important to actually, okay, cool. Like there has to be multiple ways of providing a solution for that person, right?
That's right.
So this is again another tool in the tool belt. And if you're just doing the straight up cash offer and trying to wholesale that way, like you're one trick pony, then you're not gonna get too far. Like
That's right.
Yeah, it sucks, right? It sounds ugly and mean, but yeah, like it's you're not gonna thrive. You're gonna get maybe one contract out of 50 that you could probably get.
And that's the thing though. Like, it's not that you couldn't be successful doing it, because you could, but you have to work significantly harder to be successful at it than if you had other things. So we do it all. We sub-to, we do seller financing, we used to do novations, we used to do more wholesales. Now we do just like, if we know we're gonna wholesale it or doing like a novation type thing, it's just gonna be an installment method. Yeah. If we're gonna wholesale it or wholesale it, all installment method, because we're just way more protected on that. Yeah. And so that's just one of the things for us that's just a notch in the belt, because this week we're closing on sub-twos. We're closing on installment methods. And I'll give you another example in which you're talking about. We have a house in Charlotte. We got under contract for actually, because of the arrears, we could only get it under contract for like $240. It's worth $305. That's not a wholesalable deal. Like, that's just not that's super tight. I mean, you might be able to get like a couple of thousand off of that. And so what we ended up doing, and we closed on it. They had some HOA liens that I had to pay off. So I spent about $5,000 to close on the property last week. And then we're just going to paint it, put flooring in it. It's a 2018 build, and we're going to sell it for $315. And so like when there was no wholesale deal there, we were able to turn that into $40K profit because within 3 weeks, because we ended up putting down our equitable deposit, own the property. I'm not worried about them. They can't sell it. They can't refinance. They can't take out debt against it. They can't do anything with it. And then we're just going to put paint, and then we're going to put paint and then flooring, and then sell it on the market without ever having, and like people do that all the time. They wholesale all the time, but you got to get a loan for that. You got to take it down. You got to pay origination fees. You got to do all that stuff. Whereas we just put down our equitable deposit, and then now we're going to wholesale it. Yeah. And so it's just, when there was no deal, now we have a deal.
When you structure it like that, you pay them obviously at the close of escrow, right?
Yeah. So we pay them at the initial, great question. So we paid them their initial, for this guy, we paid him his $500 equitable deposit. And then when it closes on the back end, that's when he's going to get his full installment payoff for what he has. And I think he's going to make $6K on the house, because there wasn't any equity in the house anyways. Yeah. So he's going to make $6K. He's making $500 right now. $5,500 whenever we close on the BC side. So we're putting it on the market, and whenever it sells on the market, that's when he's paid off. So on the HUD, it shows as a line item, you've got a payoff, and the payoff on the line item is like it breaks down to the initial lender and then him.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So it's interesting. It almost works as a second. Like a second. I mean, technically a seller is doing a second loan. Yep. I mean, this just kind of falls into place over there.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. That's awesome, dude. It's again, like sometimes it's easy to miss opportunity, right? When we don't know what we don't know.
That's right. Don't know a lot.
And anybody who's like, I coach a lot. I have a lot of students, and usually the idea is, man, I have to put up 30, 40, 50K to do something with the property or getting to real estate and whatnot. And I'm not saying that you're not going to have to invest, right? But there's strategies out there that we can deploy. And these are not strategies or things that are just being invented on the whim. Like they've been around for decades or centuries, some of these. And we just kind of, throwing them into the mainstream. That's now. Right. And using them as valid strategies to execute. So, and I mean, like, for example, that deal that you could have, gotten maybe $5K out of it. Yeah. Turn it into a 40K just by switching the strategy.
Just by switching the strategy. And you could do that on a lot of different things. So, cause like you're talking about the fact that person is a second on that. Yeah. And what makes it, what's really cool is we're able to do that with like a lot of flips and just in general. So we have one in like South Carolina near the beach where, and this also could be helpful depending on how much time people have. So we had one deal where because we were in a contract with them, we were able to postpone the auction by 3 months. And so what we did was we actually flipped the house in that 3 months and sold it before the next auction. So we didn't even have to pay off the arrears. We got on title with them. We knew that we're fully protected. So we started our renovations, flipped it, sold it before the auction even came back up again. So we didn't even need to pay off any of the arrears to be able to flip that property. And so that was actually a really good way for us to be able to use minimal cash down to be able to get on that title. Now, because we flipped it, you do have to come up with like the flip money, because you can't really get a bridge loan on something like that because you're not purchasing the house. So we used a private lender, or we have our fund, so we just paid with our fund. But it just gives you the opportunity to do so many more things and to be really creative. Because here's another example. We have one house, really expensive, $750,000 sale, which isn't an investor type sale that you would do in kind of the area we were in. But the seller only owed $200,000, but he owed $150,000 in arrears. And so what I said was, hey, and they wanted to stay in their houses through the holidays. So I said, what if we were to renovate the house while you guys stayed in it? So we renovated the kitchen and the bathroom, and then on the back end, split the proceeds 70-30 that we sold it on the market. So we still made over 200. They made like 150, but because we did all the work and we were able to partner with them without being worried about them selling it because we were on the title, you could do so many creative things to help the seller, which is really helpful. So it's been cool, man. And it's just, again, another strategy, another notch in your tool belt that you wouldn't normally have before because you just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge, man. That one saying just opened up a whole new world for me. Now, like, you have to make sure that you have the right clauses in place, the right paperwork in place, right? So there's ways of going about it, right? You're just not gonna, go around recording deeds, left and right. But it's important to, if you're gonna adopt a new strategy, I mean, just, go about it the right way. Like, take some time to educate yourself, go through it, hedge it, see how it pans out in your market. If it's something that's feasible. I mean, it's always, one of the things that we always push for is, okay, we have a set of documents, of tools and resources and all that. So make sure that it's all applicable to where you're at. Yeah. Some municipalities are different and whatnot. And I don't know if this, goes across the board on all 50 states and it's good, but it's always good to just kind of, take a look at okay, what are the options? What am I looking at here? So due diligence is always good. Bro, this is incredible, man. I know you have a couple of other engagements going on today and everything. So it's going to be fun.
I appreciate you.
If somebody wants to continue the conversation, maybe get a hold of you, ask you some additional questions about what's going on here, like what's the best way to reach you? Yeah,
they can reach me on my Instagram, Devin.Robinson1. I'll answer all the DMs and I'll answer all the questions people have for this, because again, it's a new thing. And so people have questions about it. They want to know how it can apply to them and apply to their deal and if it'll work in their deal. And so that's the biggest part of it, is like, knowledge without application is nothing, right? And so to be able to actually help with the application and the implementation of it is the part that becomes helpful for people. And so I think I have a fiduciary responsibility, if I'm going to give something like this that says, hey, you should try this strategy, to at least be able to help you to be able to implement it. And so, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help in any possible way. And we've got a team of people that help people with this installment method, to be able to help with them to get it through, to evaluate some of these deals, to see if they'll work with you. I'm more than happy to do that.
Awesome. And what is that again?
So you can even, theinstallmentmethod.com, you can go there, check it out, and reach out to us, reach out to the team. Just go even just to me on Instagram. I'll be more than glad to help people.
And what's the handle?
Oh, that one.
Your handle.
Mine. Sorry. Devin.Robinson1, Devin. Yeah. So super helpful.
We'll have it in the notes as well.
Thanks, man.
Bro, awesome, man. Great talk. Really cool strategy. I have one question that I like asking everybody while I'm on the podcast.
I love questions.
So if you were walking down the street and you ran into your 17-year-old self, what would you tell that kid?
Oh, this is good, man. So if
totally switch gears.
No, this is great. 17 years old. okay, I'm gonna give like a real answer, but then I'm also gonna give like this is gonna be helpful to other people. The one would have been like keep gaming. So I used to, go ahead.
So I like to ask, what would you tell that kid? Not necessarily what piece of advice would you give that kid. Not, like it's just interesting, like where the thought goes, right? Like, what would you tell that if I had the opportunity to run into my 17-year-old self? Would it be advice? Would it be like, I don't know? Would I kick my own ass? Would I like?
Yeah,
what would
that's
it be?
good. No, it would. I would say keep gaming. I used to play video games professionally, and then I went to college and I played baseball in college and chose baseball practice over my video game practice, and that was a mistake because that was right when like Twitch just came out and all that stuff, and I would have crushed it. And so, it's be a whole different conversation right now. And so,
keep gaming.
Keep gaming.
Well, in a sense, you're still doing it though.
That's true. That's true. That's right, man. Actually, for a period a couple years ago, was on Twitch a good amount, playing a lot of Call of Duty Warzone. So it was just kind of funny. But it would be to keep gaming. But also, man, people say this stuff all the time, but like, don't care what other people think, man. Just fearlessly authentic. Be fearlessly authentic, man.
Love
fearlessly. That. So I think that's what I would say.
I love it, man. Well, it's a pleasure to have you on, and thank you for all the golden nuggets. Guys, reach out. I mean, this is something that's relatively fresh, right? Not necessarily new, but fresh in the industry. It's just, and it's backed by Department of Real Estate and
by science.
I mean, by science.
It's backed by science.
So reach out to Devin. Hope you guys enjoy that as much as I did.
Thanks,
bro.
man.
Thank you very much for being in the show.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
And I'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah.
All right. With that being said, stay focused. You got this. Let's go. Fam, thank you for listening. Every week I bring you the real, the raw, the mindset, the case studies, and the strategies you need to build your own successful real estate wholesaling business. So if you haven't done so yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and don't miss out on real life experience and information that can make you millions. It's time to join the ranks of successful wholesalers and real estate entrepreneurs like the one you just heard, and take advantage of one of the biggest opportunities that we have in our lifetime to generate wealth. So go to reiwholesaling.com. Head over to my website, again, that's reiwholesaling.com, and learn how to make big profits, make big money by finding, negotiating, and closing wholesale deals from your own backyard. You've heard the stories, seen the case studies, stop thinking about it, it's time to write your own. Again, head over to reiwholesaling.com, click on coaching program, book a discovery call, have a conversation with my team, and you might get an invitation to join hundreds of students throughout the country who are leveling up on a daily basis. The writing is on the wall. Hustle is a season. It's not a business strategy. Take action, start building a sustainable and scalable real estate wholesaling business, and join the coaching program today. I will catch you guys on the next one. Talk to you soon. Stay focused. You got this.